Good afternoon, Paul. How are you?
Yeah, well, mate, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So, thank you for joining me today, and I'll be interviewing you on the importance of communication in the workplace.
Okay.
And how that helps to build effective client relationships.
All right. Well, I'll try my best.
So, how's your day going?
It's been okay. Every day I get up in the morning and my PhD is waiting on my desk, and so I sit down at my desk and I crack away at it until I go insane, and then I try to get away for a while. Yeah.
Sounds like you're really busy.
Yeah, pretty busy most of the time. Yeah. It's been a weird experience going through the PhD thing, and it's very long. So there's always something to do.
So, thank you for this. And firstly, to begin with,
Yep.
could you tell me more about your profession and how communication is important in that field?
Yeah, sure. Well, as a teacher, I always see communication as being the most important thing. It's one thing to know the content. It's another thing to be able to share that content with other people. And if you can't share with other people, then there's no point knowing anything, because that's why you're there. So I always think it's important to try to build a relationship with people so that they can then feel comfortable about doing the work that needs to be done.
Okay, so what strategies will you use to get across each students to get them engaged?
I guess it's not... there's a couple of things I need to do. One of them first is to let my students understand that I'm just a person, and I'm just like everybody else. I just do what I have to do, and I try to be as friendly with people as I can, and that we are, whether we are students or teachers, we are people first, and that's the most important thing. So that's one of my strategies. The other thing also is, is for any particular class or lesson, I never try to make it too complicated. Yeah, I always try to think in my own mind, maybe there are only 2 or 3 things that I can get across in the time we have available. What are they going to be? And then when I work out what those 2 or 3 things are, I just build the rest of the interaction around that. Yeah.
Okay, so does that help you to engage all the students?
Engagement, I guess, comes both ways, yeah? And so when you have a class of 20, 30 students or whatever in a tutorial room, different people engage differently and have a different level of engagement. For most people, it seems to work okay after a period of time. For other students, I guess it's more difficult for them. Yeah.
So does that depend on their culture? Because personally, for me, coming from a different culture, sometimes I find it difficult to get engaged in the tutorial discussion because I don't know their cultural differences. So does it depend on the culture?
Yes, it does, and it does become a little difficult, and I'm aware in myself that I'm probably not as good at this as I should be, because of course in the room there may be like several cultures. There could be African people, there could be Asian people, there could be Norwegian students are sometimes there, German students are sometimes there. If you come from a Western sort of culture, it's easier. I guess there are things that are shared. When you sort of look at perhaps different African cultures or different Asian cultures, even Aboriginal cultures, it's a different thing, and it becomes complicated. Yeah, it is complicated. I'd like to be better at it.
Okay, so could you give me an example of what you would do in these kind of situations where you find it difficult to get your message across to another person who is from a different culture?
I guess it's about, irrespective of the culture, you have to try to find a way to have the person feel comfortable with you. My strength in getting people to feel comfortable with me, I think, is to be just as open and friendly as I possibly can. But open and friendly in Western culture is not necessarily the same in other cultures. I suppose over a period of time, if I see people from a different culture in the classroom who are struggling a little, I'll make a specific attempt to talk to them privately outside of the tutorial environment, just casually, not like a meeting necessarily, but just to sort of walk with them on the way out or talk with them at the cafe or something like that. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
So checking out if they are going good with their studies and if they need any help and that?
Yes, pretty much, you know, and just, just running a few questions by them, because sometimes in some cultures they won't tell you if they are struggling because it's not right for them to do that as far as they're concerned. So I run maybe some questions past them, and if they are struggling and they don't seem to twig on to the answer very quickly, then maybe I will talk to them a little more and try to organise work a little bit more closely with them.
Okay, so because different cultures, because in different cultures they have different body languages and that, so will you be using a lot of non-verbal language? Or?
I try to. I guess for me it's my nature to do that, you know. I use facial expressions and hands and whatever, as you can see, all the time, but I'm just like that. I've always been that way. But again, you know, I'm never 100% sure that what I am doing necessarily communicates what I want it to other cultures. So, for instance, Asian people sometimes, particularly Asian girls, Asian females, they're often very quiet and they will agree with you even if perhaps they don't quite understand what you're talking about. And I try to get through those barriers, but sometimes it's very difficult.
So, as a future human service practitioner, what advice would you give me to communicate across culture?
I think behind every culture we are all people, and I think you just have to allow your own humanity to come out and accept the other person's humanity. And if you can build a trusting relationship with your client within the circumstances that you work with them, then you have the opportunity for both of you to make progress. That's not always easy, and because some clients I expect will be very hard work, but at the same time, there will be reasons for that, and I think you always have to remind yourself that you're trying to deal with the person in their position and where they have come from to get there. And if you can keep that in the front of your mind, the rest of it will fit in eventually, I suppose.
So respecting their beliefs and their cultures and just being friendly, is that it?
I think the respect thing is huge, isn't it? I would agree with you there. It is about respect, and it's about respect for them in their own circumstances, and to remind yourself that, you know, there is always the possibility that if your own circumstances were different, you could well be in their position, and maybe you would not be doing as well as them. And so if you hold that in your mind, then you start to gain respect for that other person, because perhaps you would not be as good. That's probably worth remembering, if there is anything that I can, you know, give you to remember at all.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, mate.
And I'll use this video component to help to give background to my essay, which is about the importance of communication in the workplace.
Yep.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and
all the best. Thank you very much. Cheers, mate.
you're welcome.
I think that was a good one.
Yep.